Hi, this is Karen. It's a beautiful weekend and I'm at Battle Creek Dog Park, which is in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've got Luna and Pablo with me, and what you might be able to see behind me is a big green coating over the little pond that the dogs swim in, and I just found out that was duckweed. So here I thought they were getting a superfood bath, but it turns out maybe not so much. I want to stop by, and this is for mostly the ladies. This is for the feminine womb beings. How many times have you gone to a doctor? And we know there's a lot of great Western Allopathic doctors out there, so don't misinterpret me as hate for doctors. But we have an excited dog coming into the swim area. But we go to these doctors, and doctors have become all powerful. You know, they're in control of the diagnosis code, the ICD-9 now. 9 generations and journals of all these different complex diagnoses, which are a collection of your symptoms. So much like church and state, you go in and you confess your symptoms, or you go in and confess your sins to the church, and you go in and confess your symptoms to the doctor, and then the doctor gets to decide, and maybe they might ask you, you know, do you have a preference for this one or this one based on what they tell you about this medication, read drug, or we've got this surgery for you that's just going to make it so much better, like a hip or a knee replacement. Well, we're going to basically cut you off from the femur and insert a metal rod in there, and everything's going to be all fine. Don't worry that your body's going to reject this artificial piece of equipment. And it's $150,000 a pop to get these hip surgeries done, and never before have we seen so many of them as we have today. Well, the mind-body link to hips is what? Our closest relationships. And that brings me to your closest relationship, which is what? With yourself. Ladies, womb beings, divine feminine, spiritual, sacred goddesses, hear me now. How many of you have been told, I think you have a little bit of mania. You're talking kind of fast. Have you had a little bit of bipolar? It sounds like bipolar to me. And what you're doing is you're being minimized as an intelligent, powerful woman, and you're being shunted into the hysterical uterus all over again. Thank you. She's got her thumbs up over there. Can you shoot her too? Thank you. You're being shunted into, do you agree with me?
From what I'm hearing, yes.
Wonderful.
If what I'm hearing is women are over-medicated, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and you know, we were at the dog park yesterday up in Duluth, Minnesota, and it was really interesting because I'd gone by and had a doctor visit, which I do really rarely, and it was a brand new doctor. And I was discussing something about myself as well as a family member, what I had learned about thyroid issues and how they produce a lot of anxiety, a lot of symptoms that look just like bipolar. And the doctor said, that's not true. That's not true at all. How would you draw that conclusion? And I said, Dr. Brownstein, Dr. Shames, Dr. Group, and I could keep going. But you see, ultimately, the power needs to rest with the system of domination. And that's why I did my earlier video on dependence and domination. Because it's been 4, 5, or 6 times during my lifetime of very, very minimal using a doctor. And the way I describe it is I like to take personal responsibility for drinking that water, getting to sleep, getting the fruits and veggies in, making the juice and the smoothies, getting the minerals in that I might be missing, looking at my tongue to see what I might be deficit in, and that's exactly what I do for my clients. I don't hand them a piece of paper so they can walk or drive to the pharmacy and pick up a new drug in a new plastic bottle and try out their medication. But you see, people have been made to become afraid. And this is another way that we intimidate and minimize people and create dependency, is when you're in that room alone with that doctor, and especially if you're a female and this doctor is a male. That person that you trust so much, that you've really surrendered over submissively, just like a dog would do and roll over or put its tail between its legs or pee on itself. You're in that room with that person one-on-one usually, and what that person says is gospel. They're like God speaking with you. You know, you seem with your fast speaking and you're holding a lot of pins out there, kind of seems like bipolar to me. Well, that's because if you are a divine feminine womb being, people are used to drugging you into becoming quiet, cooperative, submissive, and I don't want you to go over here and become the bra-burning feminist of the 1970s that I remember. I want you still to love men and love all people no matter their orientation. That's what I want. I want to build a world family, but you know what? I feel kind of stuck because when I see more and more and more females on a blood pressure medication, a thyroid medication, which is usually what? Levothyroxine, which is a generic for Synthroid, which is a mimic of TSH, which is made in the pituitary gland. So why not get your glands firing up like they're supposed to? Why drug somebody so that the numbers on the test appear greater and the placebo of your mind taking that pill every day talks you into believing that you're better? It doesn't do anything for you. Look it up for yourself. So if I go into a doctor's office, for example, in 2008, my son had had a very stressful incident, and I walked into Dr. Nielsen's office at Rader Clinic, Cloquet Memorial Hospital, and I had a stress-based case of colitis. I had diarrhea for 3 days. That's what happens. When you're really stressed out and something happens to your child, your stomach can really take the hit. If someone around you is super moody and crabby and kind of like playing a lot of energy games with you, or you're really not being able to get to your goals and you're feeling super anxious about it, your stomach is going to give you some warning signs. So instead of just being treated for a stress-based case of stomach problems or colitis, it was what? Incidental to what happened, a stressor. I was erroneously diagnosed with ovarian carcinoma. I slept on it, came back to the doctor who wanted to schedule a massive surgery within a week based on a CA-125 and a CT scan, which I would have never admitted to. They're toxic and dangerous and they inject dye in the body and radiation. And I said, no thank you, I'm going to go ahead and heal this on my own. And he noted mania. I said, please don't do that. I have a counselor in Duluth, his name is Dan D'Allard, and he's willing to testify as to my IQ, as to my ability to handle this on my own. So please make sure that you amend my file and remove that entirely or we're going to have a problem. Now, when I went to the dog park yesterday in Duluth, Minnesota, I met two lovely womb beings around my age, and they were here, and they had also lived in the Bay Area in California, and they'd lived in New Mexico and Arizona, and they said, we're up in Duluth and we don't want to stay here. We don't like the severe cold weather, and we kind of like a warmer emotional type of a climate. They told me that they themselves both, over the course of their lives, 50 or so years, had also been asked by doctors if they were bipolar. Now, when I started working in offices with women, I was really surprised to hear how many women had had some of the very same procedures. I mean, when 80 to 90% of women had had the same procedures, and they also had had someone along their journey ask if they had a mental health issue, I began to get kind of perplexed and think, wait a minute, this is about subduing the feminine power. Now, certainly people do have bipolar, and certainly people do have schizophrenia, and certainly they do have psychosis, and all of those disease codes are completely reversible. That's right, that means they're totally curable. But that means you have to self-discipline yourself with your diet, your lifestyle, your mind, and you have to get to the root of it by applying these daily habits every day. It's not like you have some fluke of, toxic brain chemistry and you're never going to get better. You've got to repair through the rights the wrongs that happened. A lifetime of eating wheat, a lifetime of eating cow dairy mucus, a lifetime of eating genetically modified beings that you call meat, living in factory farms. Those are just a couple. But if you've ever been instantly labeled as bipolar because maybe you were worried about your child, your mother, your father, and I've had scores and scores of clients tell me, I basically took my mom and dad to the hospital and they never came back out. They died there. They died there heavily medicated, aspirated, and they died a miserable death, something that they could have never imagined would happen to them. Does that mean all of our hospitals are negative or evil or bad? Absolutely not. But it means that we have got to start using our voice, our heart, and our movement in a very conscious way towards building the world family. And thankfully, being able to say, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to agree to disagree with you. I believe my sanity is just fine. So that's it for now. If you've been called bipolar or manic by a doctor, just give it a second thought before you arbitrarily just jump right into that diagnosis and get married to it. Don't get so connected with it that you think that you can't ever unwind it. All right, so long.